Hi there, this is Helen Tarrant again from LA. Here with our whole team. Wow, it's massive. Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to talk about rental rates. So when you go and rent a property, there's lots of sale and leasebacks out there, which means that the vendor is selling the business because firstly they're cashing out on the growth of the business. Some of them are retirement, some of them are cashing in because they want they want to be able to put that money into something else. Sometimes they basically have a succession plan. Sometimes they're just selling because it's the right time in the market. They've always wanted to sell. So now we come to a point is, how do I define the actual rental rate, right? Everyone's wondering, oh, well, is my tenant paying too high? And the myth is, yes, my tenant's paying too high. If they're paying $600 per square meter for retail, are they paying too high? Well, right now in Brisbane, some of the medical retail ground floor, they're paying $800 to $900 a square meter in key areas. A little bit fringe, we're seeing somewhere anywhere from $450 a square meter to $600 a square meter. So that may seem really, really high, but you've got to compare. You've got to compare with other like type of properties, and that's where we need to take into consideration. There's a few things. Firstly, how long has your tenant been there and the fit out they have. So if it's a warehouse tenant, it's sort of more what part of it is the shed and the workshop, and what part of it is the actual slab outside, right? And the slab outside or the land outside is worth half the price of the actual warehouse inside, and of course the office space, if they've got a big retail office space, is worth twice as much as the warehouse space. So you sort of work it backwards depending on the rate per square meter. But if you get an office space, how do you work that out, right? Well, one of the things is you can compare with what office spaces is getting next door, or the one after, or somewhere within 5k radius of similar type tenant. So it's really important to measure similarized tenants. So you've got your warehouse type tenants matching with warehouse tenants. You've got your office professional tenants, so lawyers, accountants, financial planners, same as other accountants, financial planners as well. So you need to get that comparison rate. Now, one of the reasons you can do that is you can call some agents who are leasing and find out what the rate is, but also take into account that there's a fit out as well. So if the tenant's done the fit out, then they're basically renting it at the sort of more of a base rate as well. But if the fit out end up belonging to you and you end up having the fit out and you can put another tenant in there quite easily, then the tenant's paying a premium for the fit out that they're experiencing. So for example, CBD A-class buildings have magnificent first class fit outs, and the tenant pay a premium. So they would pay, if everyone in the office space building is paying $400 a square meter, they're probably paying $600 a square meter because their fit out was probably $500,000 for their office space, and that's amortized over the period of that rent, which is quite normal. The other thing is, with restaurants and retail, you've got to find like tenants. Medical tenants, their fit out are typically $400,000 to $500,000 going into a property, compared to your run-of-the-mill sort of say baby shop or your craft shop or any of those type of tenants, right? Their fit out might be $50K. So the fit out actually really matters to the rate per square meter. So just make sure you really take that into account and find out what other light fit outs are out there, what other medical type of fit outs that the tenant's paying for, so that you can find like tenants. It's always important to compare apples with apples rather than the other way around and going, okay, well, tenant down the road is paying $300 a square meter. Why should my tenant pay $500 a square meter here? Well, your tenant here could be in a better location, so they could have access to parking. So when you're in a metro area, the more parking you have, the more your tenant is going to pay for. And a lot of times your tenant will rent that parking space from you, especially when there's no other parking. It's for their clients, and it is also for themselves as well. I have known psychologists and allied health who minimum need, because they've got 6 rooms, need 6 parking spaces for their clients, plus they need anywhere from 3 to 4 for the therapist there. So they need 10 parking spots for maybe 160 or 180 square meters of office space, which means that they'll have to rent from next door and some of another tenant in the building as well, because they can't take up all of the guest parking spaces. But amenities is the other thing also to look at. Amenities is really, really important, because for some tenants, they want to be able to offer that lifestyle to their staff members. So what that means is that they want to be able to offer gym, They want to be able to offer, area where they can entertain, have barbecue to entertain clients. They want to be able to say they can cycle to work and have someone to have the cycle, have a shower, and be more lifestyle friendly than they were before. So if that's the case and that's your tenant, they're going to pay a premium for that as well. So that again affects the rental rate as well. I know that there's a lot of conflicting questions and a lot of conflicting information out there about what exactly is the proper rental rate. The way I look at it when I come to rental rate is, firstly, I compare like type of properties together. So if it's a warehouse, I compare with other warehouses. If it's a retail, I compare to other retails but of the similar business. Same with office spaces of the similar business. Then I add on top of it location. So where are you located? Are you in metro, regional, fringe? Are you in a key area where it's really good amenities, good access? If that's the case, then the tenant pays a premium. Then on top of that, I look at what is available for the tenant. Is it parking? Is it amenities like lifestyle amenities? Or is it near a transport hub? You see, if you have a tenant that is an education tenant or a school, they need to be near a transport hub and they will pay a premium to be near a transport hub. So you got to look at where it's specific to your tenant, and you might be thinking your tenant's paying a lot more, but they're actually paying just on market. So you've got to measure it the same metrics with the same metrics. Then on top of all of that, I want to look at the lease term as well, because I want to make sure that the tenant haven't had 5% rental increases for the last 3 to 5 or 10 years, and now the rent is way out of whack, then we have to pull it back later. So that's something to take into consideration. If they're just starting a new lease and that's been defined and valued, that's all fine, because you get specialist valuers out there who can value rents and comparisons for you. But if you don't, and the rent they've been doing 5% or 4% rental increases over COVID and before and after, you'll find that the rent is going to sit slightly above market. Now, there's nothing wrong with rent slightly above market, as long as you know there's going to be a pullback later on and that you are aware of it and you calculate the yield based on that pullback. So coming to a final conclusion about defining rental rates. Start at the base rate. Right? Look at the age of the building. Look at the property. Look at like tenants. Look at amenities. Look at parking. Look at access. And look at the type of tenant and the lease that is there. And then you should, if you add all these layers on top of each other, you should come to a similar net rent than when you started out with. So your base rent is really important, and then add layers and layers and layers on top of that, so then you can arrive at an equitable rent. The one way to find out is obviously talk to 3 or 4 agents in the area, talk to other agents within a 5K radius. There's a lot of work to be done to find out what it is, but if you really want to do a comparison to see if you're paying the right rent during due diligence, that's what we would do, and that's what you can do. But also in your valuation report, they will give you comparative rents as well. So it's well worth you paying for a valuation report to know if you're paying the right rent. And when you're doing a sale and lease back and the rent is the most important thing to determine, then the valuation is obviously really important, because if the valuation comes in low, then you can go back and adjust the metrics for the rent so that it still is equitable for everybody. But ultimately you end up with a better outcome because you're paying fair market price and you pay fair market price for rent. So I know there's a lot of complicating factors, but if you're looking at a property and you're not sure if the tenant's paying above market rate and you think they are, then don't go under your assumptions. Ultimately, it's all about being equitable for everyone involved, and that's where you need to get to. So if you're looking at the rent and you assume it's high, don't assume, right? Because you're not a valuer. And don't assume that Google is going to tell you everything. Look, talk to people, get real evidence so that you can go back to the vendor and renegotiate. And if you can do that, then you are on the right track to getting equitable rent as well. And also, it's about what rent they're willing to pay and what rent you're willing to accept as well. So it's all open for negotiation. In commercial property, everything's negotiable. You just got to know how to negotiate. And if you need us to help you with that, you need us to give you some advice, you need us to give you some information around what particular areas you're looking at, reach out to us, helentarrant.com, and let's jump on a strategy call. Let's talk about how we can help you achieve financial freedom through commercial property. Because through our buyer's agency service and our mentorship, we can guide you hand by hand and lead you through the path, whether you're doing a sale leaseback, whether you're doing a property where you're trying to assess the rent, whether you're doing an uplift or a set and forget. We're here to implement those strategies with you, for you, and you can achieve financial freedom in a much short space of time. So with that in mind, post down below if there's anything you want me to cover, any questions, reach out to me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.